look, I know how this sounds. Believe me, I really do. When you hear about it, about what I did, you're going to judge me. You're going to shake your head and probably call me every name under the sun, and honestly? A part of me understands that. A big part, even. But before you write me off, before you click away or roll your eyes, can you just hear me out? Just for a minute? Try to understand, even if you don't agree. Because it wasn't just some impulsive, cruel act, not really. It was complicated. It was a pressure cooker building up for years, and I was the one who finally cracked. It was me, Chloe. 32 years old, and I blew up my perfectly curated life. My thesis of dissatisfaction, you ask? It was this suffocating, unbearable weight of perfect. Because that's what he was, you see. David. Perfect. And that's exactly what was wrong. We met when I was 19, fresh out of high school, barely knowing which way was up. He was 21, already stable, already mature, already knowing exactly what he wanted. He wanted me. And I, naive and flattered and utterly lost, wanted what he was offering: security, a future, a sense of belonging. We spent 13 years together, over a decade of my life, his entire adult existence. From those flimsy dorm room posters to the mortgage on our charming little bungalow, he was there. He was the constant, the anchor. For everyone else, he was the dream, the gold standard. Oh, he was the dream, all right. The kind, reliable, steady, attentive type that all your friends' moms would gush over. Oh, David, he's just such a good one, Chloe, they'd coo, sipping their Chardonnay at our barbecues. He remembered birthdays, anniversaries, even the obscure little details I'd mention in passing, the brand of tea I liked, the specific way I folded my socks. He never forgot to say I love you before bed, never failed to bring me a coffee in the morning. He was the one who fixed things around the house, who dealt with the car repairs, who planned our vacations down to the last, meticulous detail. He was, objectively speaking, perfect. And that, my dear listeners, was the problem. His attentiveness felt like suffocation. His stability felt like a cage. His predictability, once comforting, became a straitjacket of routine. Every morning, the same coffee, same kiss, same have a good day, love every evening, the same questions about my day, the same bland dinner, the same 2 hours of a nature documentary or a boring drama before bed. Every Saturday, our date night at the same Italian place, ordering the same pasta, having the same conversation about work, our friends, future plans. Future plans that felt less like an exciting adventure and more like a pre-programmed itinerary I was being dragged along on. There was no spontaneity, no edge, no life. Just this endless, beige sameness. Can you imagine? Being so utterly, completely known, and yet feeling so utterly, completely invisible? He saw the perfect wife he wanted me to be, not the messy, yearning woman I felt like I was. It started subtly, as these things often do. A whisper of discontent that grew into a shout. I was at a work conference, one of those soul-crushing affairs in a windowless hotel ballroom. And then, he walked in. Marco. He was the keynote speaker for a session I hadn't even planned on attending, but he captivated me from the moment he stepped onto the stage. He had this wild, untamed hair, a cynical smirk that seemed to be laughing at the very idea of corporate jargon, and a quick, dry wit that sliced through the pretense of the room like a hot knife through butter. He was everything David wasn't: unpredictable, a little chaotic, dangerously charming. And he looked at me, in the crowded reception hall later, not like I was a familiar book he'd already read cover to cover, but like I was a brand new, thrilling mystery he couldn't wait to unravel. Our first transgression was just an exchange of numbers, hidden under the pretense of professional networking. Can you believe that? The oldest trick in the book. But the thrill of it, the simple act of deleting his contact from my recent calls as soon as David walked into the room, it was intoxicating. It was a jolt of electricity that I hadn't felt in years. The text started innocently enough: sarcastic comments about the conference, shared complaints about our respective industries. But then they deepened. They became late-night confessions, philosophical debates, and playful banter that felt sharper, more alive than any conversation I'd had with David in years. Marco understood my cynical humor, he challenged my assumptions, he made me feel seen. Truly seen, not just admired for fitting into a mold. And the lies. Oh, the lies became a second skin. It started with small omissions. Oh, I was just working late, when really I was grabbing a drink with Marco. Then it escalated to carefully constructed narratives. My friend Sarah needed help with something, when Sarah was a convenient alibi for a clandestine coffee, then a dinner, then a long drive to nowhere, just talking, laughing, feeling this electric current hum between us. Every secret text, every furtive glance, every hushed phone call became another brick in the wall I was building between David and me. And the more I lied, the more powerful I felt. It was a strange, twisted sense of control. Like I was finally orchestrating my own life, rather than being a character in David's carefully written play. I rationalized it, of course. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, not really. It was just a friendship, a harmless flirtation. I was just unhappy, just exploring. Wasn't I entitled to a little happiness? Wasn't I allowed to feel alive? David, bless his innocent heart, never suspected a thing. He'd ask about my day, and I'd weave my intricate webs of half-truths, and he'd just nod, smiling, completely trusting. He saw my busyness as dedication to my career, my late nights as ambition. He never questioned, never doubted. And that, in itself, felt like permission. His unwavering trust, his steadfast love, became a green light for my escalating deception. It felt like he was so sure of us, so certain of my devotion, that he'd become complacent. And that complacency, I told myself, was on him. It was a sign of how boring our life had become. The line, when it finally blurred, wasn't a sudden break. It was a gradual erosion, like a river carving a canyon. Marco and I were out for dinner, a quiet place tucked away from prying eyes. We'd had a few too many glasses of wine, and the conversation had drifted from the abstract to the intensely personal. He told me about his own complicated past, his yearning for something more, something real. And I just broke. I found myself pouring out all my years of suppressed dissatisfaction, all the quiet resentments, all the ways I felt like I was suffocating under David's perfect love. He listened, truly listened, his intense gaze never leaving mine. And then he reached across the table, his hand covering mine, and he said, "You deserve to be happy, Chloe. Truly happy. Not just content." That was it. That was the moment. The physical affair started that night, not with grand passion, but with a desperate, hungry relief. It was a silent conversation, a communion of two souls seeking escape. With Marco, I felt desirable, unpredictable, edgy. He told me I was wild, that I had a fire in me that needed to be set free. David saw me as calm, composed, the steady partner. Marco saw the chaos and encouraged it. And that, I convinced myself, was true love. The other, the long-standing, steadfast love I had with David, was a lie, a comfortable illusion I had created for myself, a prison I had inadvertently built. This new, exhilarating connection? This was real. This was what I had been missing my entire adult life. It escalated quickly after that. The lies became bolder, the risks greater. I was consumed by it. Every moment I wasn't with Marco felt like a wasted breath. I started making excuses to travel for work more often, to stay out late with friends I hadn't seen in years. The guilt was a dull ache, always there, but it was drowned out by the roar of excitement, the intoxicating rush of living a double life. I felt invincible, like I was finally in control, finally choosing my own path. And then, the ultimate betrayal. The one that still makes my stomach clench. It was David's birthday. We were at our favorite restaurant, not the Italian one, another one, a slightly fancier place that we saved for special occasions. He'd planned a quiet dinner, just the two of us. He was dressed up, looking handsome in that dependable, David way. And I was miserable. Because Marco was out of town that week, and I felt this gnawing emptiness without him. I missed our late-night calls, our secret laughs. I was staring across the table at David, this kind, good man, and all I could think about was the man who made me feel alive. He was talking about our future, our plans for a family, our dream house with the big yard. And then he paused, a hopeful, nervous smile on his face, and he reached into his jacket pocket. My heart dropped. No. Not now. Not like this. He pulled out a small, velvet box. My breath hitched. He got down on one knee, right there in the middle of a crowded restaurant, and he looked up at me with those honest, loving eyes, the eyes that never saw the lies, only the person he thought I was. Chloe, he said, his voice thick with emotion, you're my world. You always have been. Will you marry me? And that's when it happened. The words just spilled out. Unfiltered, ugly, brutal. The words I'd been repeating to Marco in hushed tones, the words that I had convinced myself were the truth. My throat was tight, my eyes burning. I looked at the ring, sparkling under the restaurant lights, and I saw a tighter chain, a heavier cage. I saw a future of scheduled date nights, of mundane predictability, of suffocating sameness stretched out before me like a barren landscape. David, I whispered, my voice raw, I can't. I can't do this anymore. I miss my whole phase. The words hung in the air, grotesque and loud, even in a whisper. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. I saw the light go out of his eyes, the hope drain from his face. His hand, still holding the open box, started to tremble. And then, without thinking, fueled by a mixture of panic, shame, and a twisted sense of self-preservation, I snatched the box from his hand. I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the sudden clarity, the desperate need to sever the cord completely. I just remember the weight of the ring in my palm, and then, with all the force I could muster, I threw it. Not at him, not directly, but past his head, across the table, where it landed with a pathetic clink against a half-eaten breadstick basket. A little girl at the next table gasped. His face was utterly blank. No anger, no tears. Just emptiness. He slowly stood up, his eyes still fixed on the ring nestled among the crumbs. He didn't say a word. He just turned, walked out of the restaurant, and was gone. I sat there, shaking, tears streaming down my face, not sure if they were tears of regret or of some perverse, twisted triumph. I had done it. I had burned the bridge. I had chosen myself. I had chosen Marco. I called Marco that night, my voice hoarse from crying. I told him everything. The proposal, the words, the ring. I expected him to rush to me, to tell me I was brave, that I had done the right thing, that now we could finally be together, properly. Instead, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, he sighed. A heavy, put-upon sigh. Chloe, he said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual warmth. What have you done? I thought this was just a bit of fun. A temporary thing. I have my own life, you know. I never said I was going to leave my wife for you. His wife? My stomach dropped. I knew he was married, of course. He'd mentioned it once, vaguely, in a way that implied it was over, a mere formality, a dead-end relationship. A temporary thing, he'd said. Not a wife he was going back to. The air went out of my lungs. My fantasy, my beautiful, passionate, liberating fantasy, shattered into a million sharp pieces. He wasn't my escape. He was just another lie. He quickly cut ties, blaming me for the mess, for making it real. He said he couldn't deal with the drama. He needed things to be simple. He just disappeared. David, meanwhile, was swift and absolute. I tried to call him, to explain, to apologize, to somehow undo the damage. But he never answered. Not once. When I went back to the house, the next day, the locks were changed. All my clothes, my books, my personal effects were neatly packed in boxes on the porch. The car he'd bought me was gone. My name was off the shared bank accounts. He'd already changed his phone number. The man who had once loved me with such unwavering devotion had become a ghost, a void. I tried to reach out to his sister, who had been my best friend for years. She blocked me. His mother, who had treated me like a daughter, sent me a single, scathing text, "You ruined him. Stay away." My own friends, the ones who had listened to my complaints about David, the ones who had validated my feelings of being trapped, even they started to distance themselves. I could feel the judgment, the whispers. They knew. Everyone knew. That raw, public display at the restaurant. It had gone viral in our small social circle. I was the girl who threw the ring and said she missed her hoe-phase, the woman who publicly humiliated the perfect man. I was toxic. I was a cautionary tale. I was isolated. And then the news started trickling in. First, a casual mention from a mutual acquaintance. David had quit his stable, boring job and started his own business, something he'd always talked about but never had the courage to do. Then, photos started appearing on social media, not from him directly, but from friends. Photos of him smiling, truly smiling, a lightness in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. He looked happy. He looked free. And then, the ultimate punch to the gut, a picture of him, arm around a woman. Beautiful, radiant, confident. They were laughing, holding hands, looking at each other with an undeniable warmth. They looked like they belonged together. They looked like they were building something real. My life, on the other hand, well, it didn't exactly blossom into the thrilling adventure I'd envisioned. My freedom felt less like liberation and more like a vast, echoing emptiness. The excitement of Marco was gone, replaced by the bitter taste of being used and discarded. My career stalled. I moved into a tiny, run-down apartment, a stark contrast to the comfortable home David and I had built. My days were filled with a dull ache of loneliness, punctuated by pangs of regret and bitter envy. I tried dating, but every man seemed bland compared to the ghost of Marco's dangerous charm, and every honest relationship felt suffocating compared to the illusion of freedom I once chased. The truth bomb, the absolute final nail in my coffin of delusion, came from David's mother. I saw her at the grocery store, months after the breakup. I tried to duck away, but she saw me. She walked right up, her face etched with a mix of sadness and cold fury. "Chloe," she said, her voice low, but sharp enough to cut. "You were like a daughter to me. I loved you. And you broke his heart. You crushed him. He gave you everything, and you threw it away for nothing. He's happy now. Truly happy. For the first time in years, he's actually himself. And do you know why? Because you're gone. You were holding him back. You were his anchor, but you were dragging him down, slowly, year after year, with your dissatisfaction. He always tried to make you happy, and you just kept taking. Now he's free. And you deserve every single bit of the loneliness you're feeling right now." She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, a lone, pathetic figure, among the produce aisle. She was right, of course. About David. He's engaged now. To her. The woman in the picture. They're planning a wedding, a future. They just bought a house, bigger than ours, with that big yard I used to dismiss as boring suburbia, and they're happy. Genuinely, uncomplicatedly happy. And me? I'm still here. Still 32. Still living in that tiny apartment. Still swiping through dating apps, looking for that spark, that thrill that Marco gave me, that I now realize was just a fleeting illusion. Do I regret it? The moment? The words? Tossing the ring? Yes. God, yes. I regret the way it happened. I regret the pain I caused. But do I regret wanting more? Wanting to feel alive? Wanting to escape that slow, quiet suffocation? A part of me still screams, no. You deserved more. You deserved passion. He was too good, too stable, too everything. He couldn't handle the real me, the messy, complicated me. He wanted a perfect wife, not a woman who missed her freedom. And Marco? He was just a coward, a selfish man who couldn't face the consequences of his own desires. So, where does that leave me? It leaves me here. Alone. With a lifetime of what-ifs and the lingering taste of bitter regret. So, yeah. I said I missed my whole phase and threw the ring at him. And now he's gone. And his whole family cut me off. Was it worth it? I don't know. I honestly, truly don't know.